Hello, my name's Mark Dorey and welcome again to another Encountering Jesus, where I invite you to put aside what you know or what you think you know about Jesus and look at him afresh as we go through John's Gospel. And last year in 2021, we looked at the missing miracles and signs of Jesus. So if you missed that one, it's in a link in the description below. And as always, if you are enjoying this channel, why not like, subscribe and click the bell and you'll never miss another episode. Well, this is the first one of 2022, so Happy New Year if you're watching live, so to speak. And today we're actually going to be looking at Jesus again with another catch of fish. Okay, and we're going to be looking at Jesus. Well, we are looking at Jesus. What's the point of doing Encountering Jesus if we don't look at Jesus? Today we're going to be looking at John chapter 21 verses 1 to 14, and I'll be using the New Living Translation here, which will be popping up on the screen, but you can follow along in whatever translation you wish. So we're looking at John chapter 21 verses 1 to 14. Later, Jesus appeared again to his disciples beside the Sea of Galilee. And this is how it happened. Several of the disciples were there: Simon Peter, Thomas, nicknamed the twin, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and two other disciples. Simon Peter said, "I'm going fishing." "We'll come too," they all said. So they went out into the boat, but they caught nothing all night. At dawn, Jesus was standing on the beach, but the disciples couldn't see who he was. He called out, "Fellows, have you caught any fish?" "No," they replied. Then he said, "Throw out your net on the right-hand side of the boat, and you'll get some." So they did, and they couldn't haul in the net because there was so many fish in it. Then the disciple Jesus loved said to Peter, "It's the Lord." When Simon Peter that it was the Lord, he put on his tunic, for he had stripped for work, jumped into the water and headed for the shore. The others stayed with the boat and pulled the loaded net to the shore, for they were only about 100 yards from the shore. And when they got there, they found breakfast waiting for them, fish cooking over a charcoal fire and some bread. "Bring some of the fish you've caught," Jesus said. So Simon Peter went aboard and dragged the net to the shore. There were 153 large fish, and yet the net hadn't torn. "Now come and have some breakfast," Jesus said. None of the disciples dared to ask him, "Who are you?" They knew who it was, the Lord. Then Jesus served them the bread and the fish. This was the third time Jesus had appeared to the disciples since he had been raised from the dead. So, I don't believe it. It started raining. I'm going to see if I can do this before it finishes, before it starts to rain and I get too wet. I think I got wet last time, but there you go. The thing is, right, Jesus has appeared to the disciples twice since being raised from the dead, and now everything's gone quiet. Everything has gone quiet. And this passage, I think, focuses particularly on Peter. And there's Peter, right? He's seen Jesus twice, but he hasn't had a chance to get Jesus alone. He hasn't had a chance to talk to him, to explain, because Peter has denied him 3 times. Jesus died on the cross and he's been raised from the dead, and he appears to all the disciples, and Peter is yet to get Jesus alone. And so he's appeared twice, and then there's nothing. And sometimes when nothing's happening, and when we don't know what to do, and we're sort of fretting about things and all of these things, what do? We go about the things that we know to do without thinking. Now, Peter's a fisherman, so Peter's thinking, I might as well go and fish. And a lot of the other disciples are fishermen too, and so they go, okay, we might as well come along with you. So they get in their boat, and the fishermen of the time fished at night, because that's when you caught fish, and they're out all night, and guess what? They catch nothing. So not only is Peter's out all night and he's most probably fretting, oh, why haven't I seen Jesus alone, and why can't I explain to him, and everything else, but then they catch nothing. Now, this has happened before. It's not recorded in John's Gospel, but it's recorded in Luke's Gospel, where in one of Peter's first meetings with Jesus gets into his boat and he preaches, and then he says to Peter, go out and cast your net out into the sea, because they'd been out all night and they hadn't caught a thing. So Peter's most probably thinking back to this, and they go, and Jesus says, go out and lay your nets down, and Peter goes, well, what's the point? It's daylight now, we've been out all night, we haven't caught anything. So anyway, Peter does, he says, because you say so, I'm going to do it. And so they go out, they put the nets down, and they catch the biggest load of fish ever. And so much so that they call the other boats with John and James, and they pull the nets in, because the nets are almost breaking with so many fish. And at the end of that time, Peter falls to his knees and he says, go away from me, Lord, for I am a sinful man. And Jesus says, you used to catch fish, now you're gonna catch people. You're gonna go fishing for people. So Jesus is risen from the dead, he's appeared twice, and then they go out fishing and it's all the same again. And Peter must be thinking, the last time this happened, Jesus was in the boat, and it was the start of many things. And if you think about it, 3 years have passed since that time. There's been miracles, there's been people being raised from the dead, people being healed, Jesus' amazing teachings and everything else. Jesus being crucified 3 years, and Peter denied him 3 times, and he's back in his boat. And things could be worse. They haven't caught a thing. They haven't caught a thing, and Peter must be going, what's happening here? So they head back to shore, and then there's a figure in the dawn, there's a figure on the beach, and he calls out, he says, have you caught anything? And they're going, well, no. And he goes, chuck your nets over on the other side. And they do. And all of a sudden the boat lurches to the side because it's filled with fish. John, who wrote John's Gospel, goes, it's the Lord, it's Jesus. Well, Peter's thinking, it's Jesus, I'm going to get to him first. So he jumps in the water and he swims to shore. Meanwhile, the others come behind, and Peter's dying to get to Jesus first. And Jesus is there, and he's got this sort of barbecue set up, and he's got fish cooking over the barbecue, and he says to Peter, bring some of the fish that you've caught. Bring some of the fish you've caught. And this is almost an echo of what's going to happen. Bring some of the people you've caught, or you're going to catch. So Peter goes and he hauls in the nets, and the other disciples are there, and they all know it's Jesus, and they eat this breakfast with the risen Jesus. But all the time Peter's thinking, I need to get Jesus alone, I need to get Jesus alone. And they're having breakfast together. And the thing is, maybe Peter is reflecting on this repeat occurrence that happened in Luke's Gospel 3 years ago when he was first called, and maybe Peter senses, this is a recommissioning to go fishing for people, because this is what Jesus' disciples have been doing ever since. For 2,000 years we've been fishing for people. I'm fishing for people now. I'm saying, come and encounter Jesus, come and encounter Jesus, because encountering Jesus, you're going to meet again with God. You're going to have your sins forgiven. You're going to have the relationship that you've always wanted. And it's an eternal relationship. It doesn't end. It doesn't end in this life. 2 days ago I went to a funeral of a dear friend of mine. She was like a mother to me. And it was the best funeral ever, because she was saved. She knew Jesus, and we knew that she wasn't dead, she was asleep, and she was awake again with Jesus in heaven. You know, when one of the disciples in Acts gets stoned, Stephen, it says his beautiful words, he fell asleep. And when we die, if we know Jesus, we fall asleep, and then Jesus, just like he's risen from the dead, he raises us from the dead. And it was a wonderful funeral. Can you have a wonderful funeral? Yes, you can, because this lady is with Jesus now. And Jesus, and funny, 2 days ago I read from John 14 in the Bible, and it says, Jesus told his disciples, I go and prepare a place for you in my Father's house, a special place, and when it's ready, I'll come and get you. And Jesus came and got my dear friend, and she's now with him forever and ever. And that's what it's all about. Fishing for people, fishing for people, fishing for people. So here's the thing. I'm going to have a cup. Hang on, it's getting cold. How would you feel if you were Peter? If you were Peter, how would you feel? You know, you've denied him 3 times, and you can't get him alone. The other disciples are there. Have you ever wanted to get someone alone and you can't get him alone? And the other disciples are there, and you've done something so wrong, and you want to apologise, you want to explain, Lord, I didn't mean to deny you, and this, that and the other. You know, how do you feel? If you're not following Jesus, how do you feel when someone tells you about Jesus? Do you deny him? Do you go, oh no, I don't want to know this now? How do you feel? What is the reasons that you're doing this? And here's the big question. What things, if Jesus was there now, sitting next to you, standing next to you or whatever, what things would you like to talk privately to Jesus about? And it's raining now, so I'm going to have to finish. As always, the same old questions, but they're important questions. What do you know about Jesus that you didn't know before? How has this changed your opinion of him? And what other questions has this raised? As always, it's all in this book, along with personal monologues, places to write your thoughts and everything else. But as I say, you don't have to buy this book. It's about encountering Jesus, whether you do it over the video or whatever. But today, why not take a couple of minutes and imagine that Jesus is next to you, sitting there while you're having a cup of tea? What would you ask him privately? Because he knows all your thoughts in your heart anyway. But what would you express to him? And what might he say back to you? Well, look, it's really starting to rain now, so I'm going to sign off there. So until next time, bye-bye.